I hear a lot of questions about self, what it really is, how it feels like, and especially how to tell if you are in self or not. And in this video, I will dive into everything self. We will first go into how self is a range and not a static state, and why it's so tricky to get there. And most importantly, how to check whether you are in self or whether a part of you is pretending to be self. Sometimes knowingly, sometimes not. So let's dive in. In the internal family systems model, our psyche is made of many different parts, and they all come together to create what we commonly call the ego. While at the core of who we are, there is what IFS calls the self. And if we have never met, hi, I'm Valentina Manini. I am a certified internal family systems practitioner, and I have a master's degree in the science and psychology of change in both individuals and organizations. I work in private practice in Zurich, Switzerland, even though I am originally from Italy, and I live and breathe IFS both personally and professionally. So let's dig into this range that self is really. You can imagine the amount of self-access as existing along a continuum. On this end of the continuum, there is what we commonly call dissociation. This is a state in which there is complete disconnection from the self. This may show up as dissociation in times when we have developed very sophisticated ways to numb ourselves or avoid life altogether. Moving along the range, we come to a state of busyness. This is the state of everyday life where we're often too busy, caught up in routines, and mostly in our heads. This is a state that many call life in autopilot, and I'm pretty sure that you know how that feels like. Further along the spectrum, we find moments of increased self-connection, and this is the kind of self that we can access through IFS more deeply when we are in sessions or through breathwork or other modalities. It is in these moments that we can really feel or perceive the felt sense of self, and it is that openness, that curiosity, that complete lack of judgmentality, that state of being and not doing, that state of curiosity and connectedness, this deeper knowing, this compassionate knowing, this loving presence. And sometimes during IFS sessions, we can even get to a state of deeper connection with the self in those moments in which we can really access a state of blissful presence with ourselves, that state in which we feel that we are okay just the way that we are, that sense that everything that we are is just okay, in which there is really this knowing about who you are truly in your deepest essence, this feeling that you are worthy simply because you exist, not because of what you do, not because of how you please others, not because of what you have achieved in your life, but simply enough because you are and you exist. And at the far end of the spectrum, very much on this side, I would say towards the upper side, we find transcendent experiences. And these are experiences that are often brought upon by psychedelics. And they are experiences that connect us not only to our individual self, but also to the universal self. These are moments of unity with all life and a sense of oneness and unity with all life, with the cosmos, with the bigger universe, and with something infinitely larger, whatever that might be for you. Now that you have a better understanding about the continuum and the range of self, I'd like to answer two of the most asked questions about self. The first one is, why is it so tricky to get to feel self? And there are mostly two reasons for it. The first one is that the self cannot be summoned. It cannot be found and cannot be forced to come forward. And you can already see the problem here if you've already worked a little bit with IFS, because that's what parts do. They try to get to self. They try to find self. They try to help us to be in self. And if by chance we actually get to feel some self energy, then you might have experienced parts immediately coming in, trying to keep the self from going away. And there might also be a certain level of anxiety about it not being predictable, about it not being reliably present, about it coming and going in a kind of a flow that is not necessarily feeling safe to a lot of parts of the system. And another reason why it's not so easy to connect to the self, it's simply because that's what trauma does. Trauma disconnects us from self. It disconnects us from what was not welcome or to what was not necessarily understood or received when we were little. The self is in an emerging state that happens when all parts that are present are making space, or when all parts that are present don't feel the need to do something, when they are relaxed and at peace. And this is something that happens when they are all seen and heard and acknowledged. But what about those parts that are really good at pretending to be self? And the good example are meditator parts, the ones that train for years to push everything away. So of course, I'm not talking about mindfulness, which is a meditation practice in which you allow everything to be there without judgment. You welcome everything as a guest. I'm talking about other meditation practices that might advise to let everything flow by as a cloud in the sky. And I guarantee you it becomes a little too easy to have parts that then learn to push those little clouds in the sky so that they are doing the meditation right, because the meditation clearly says don't cling to anything. Let the clouds pass by. What if the clouds actually want to cling? What if the clouds want to say something? Well, that's when they get skillfully pushed away. And when a part has trained with this kind of meditation practices for years, well, that part becomes pretty skilled at creating this sense of space, this sense of calmness. And I've met quite some of these parts over the years, and they genuinely believed they were self. So it's also important to know that most parts that come in and believe to be self, they truly believe that they are self. And they come in with the best possible intentions. They come in to bring that sense of calm that can ground us when we're not feeling too well. They come in to bring that sense of everything is going to be okay when we're not feeling well. And so it's really about being aware. Chances are that there are a number of self-like parts that are going to come in and embody some of the qualities of self that they've learned to bring you that soothing feeling that the self would bring if it was actually allowed to be there. So how do you tell whether you are in self or whether you are in a part? And I would like to suggest that if you're asking yourself this question, chances are that you are in a part. When you are in self, you tend to really get a very clear feeling. Either that this is something different that you've never felt before, or if you've already felt it before, then you kind of get a clear feeling that you are connected to self. And then you can ask yourself where you are in this continuum, right? Are you feeling just a little bit of it? Or are you feeling a very soothing, calm, peaceful, clear, and curious presence that you can clearly feel throughout your whole body, right? And that is holding space for your parts. Or if you're not sure, something you can do to check whether there is a part there and not self is to first of all feel into that energy. Is that energy coming with an intention? Is this coming in to help you feel peace? Is this coming in because it wants something for you? And really feel the qualities that it's bringing to you, and see if you can feel gratitude for those qualities that it's bringing. And as you connect with it, as you feel into it and sit with it and feel gratitude for it, see if that's okay to ask it, what do you want from me? Or why are you here with me right now? The fundamental difference between self and parts is that self is a state of being and has no agenda, while protective parts are a state of doing and hold an agenda. There's always a reason why they are there and they're doing what they're doing. And it comes from a place of care and love, and they will be happy to share with you why they are there and what they hope to bring about for you, as long as they're not being judged. And when they answer this question, then you know that it's a part and not self. And then at that point, you can just get to know it like any other part. But always, please be gentle. Remember that this part learned to bring in qualities that would be valuable to you. And I would say that it's kind of extraordinary, so beautiful that this part has learned to do this for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll be very happy to read them and answer whatever might not be clear or whatever else I might not have answered in this video. So happy explorations!